Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If it's your first time here, welcome. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you in detail the new travel protocols for traveling to Nigeria, right? Last week, I actually shared some quick pointers with regard to the major changes with regard to vaccinated versus unvaccinated travelers coming to Nigeria. And I mentioned in that video that I was sure that the government was going to provide a little bit more depth into the information by today, which is the day everything will come into effect, the 25th of October 2021. I'm sure you probably see this video tomorrow, which is the 26th, but yes, you get the drift. So I'm going to be sharing with you a lot of detail. Some of you out there may be tired of hearing these protocols over and over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a timestamp right in the description box so that you can see the key topics where I'm talking about something that might be interesting to you, and you can jump chapters basically, right? I hope that is super, super useful. So before I get started also, don't forget to hit that subscribe red button. I really want you guys to be a part of this incredible family here. And yeah, let's get started. So I'm reading the information here from the nitp.ncdc.gov.ng website, right? And I'm going to talk firstly about the pre-departure from country of exit. I'm going to give you the overall gist here and not maybe read through everything. But essentially pre-boarding, step one is that you need to perform a PCR test not more than 3 days, that's 72 hours before your flight, right? If you're transiting countries, it's actually from your first flight, not from your transiting country. So as long as the test you've done is from the first flight, within 72 hours, you're fine, right? And it's important to make sure you bring a hard copy or electronic copy for departure and arrival, because you have to show it there. Step two, it states here that all intending passengers, including diplomats and children less than 10 years, must register on the Nigeria travel portal. That is nitp.ncdc.gov.ng website. And you need to fill out the health declaration, provide all the phone numbers, information on there. Step three, after filling out the health declaration form, you need to then upload your negative COVID PCR test. Only children less than 10 years are exempted from uploading a pre-arrival negative COVID test, right? It then states here that once you uploaded the test, you then proceed to the payment section of the portal. But it says here also that diplomats and children less than 10 years are exempted from payments for the repeat test in Nigeria, right? Interesting, because I think they're now saying diplomats have to upload their test, which wasn't the case before, but because they're only saying that diplomats and children under 10 are exempted for the repeat test, but it doesn't say diplomats are exempted from the original 72-hour test. So that's a change, I believe. It also states that you should bring along your hard copy of a negative PCR test there. Step four, right? And this talks about unvaccinated and partially vaccinated travelers. It states on reaching the payment section of the portal, right, travelers will be requested to select their preferred lab collection center based on where they're going to be isolating for a period of 7 days in Nigeria. A list of accredited private lab providers, sample collection centers across the countries are available on the portal. The next stage from there is to choose a payment gateway and then proceed to pay for the day 2 and day 7 in-country test. So they've been very clear actually as to what day 2 is. Your arrival day is day 1 and the next day is day 2, right? So you do it the day after you arrive. That's what I'm getting here. Similarly for day 7, your arrival day is day 1 and you do it plus 6 days after. That's when you do your test. It then states here that please note that travelers paying in Naira should use cards issued by a Nigerian bank. So it then talks about if you've been fully vaccinated, I guess what your journey will be like on the payment portal. It states on reaching the payment section of the portal, travelers will be requested to select their preferred lab collection center based on where they want to be, where they'll be located 2 days after arrival in the country for day 2 test. Remember, if you've been vaccinated, you only have to do day 2 test, and day 2 test is arrival day is day 1 and day 2 is the second day. A list of accredited private lab providers and sample collection centers across the country are available on the payment portal. The next stage is to choose the payment gateway again and proceed to pay for the day 2 test. So a number of you have actually been asking like, oh, where do you do the day 2 test? It's similar to where you would do the day 7 test. Just pick your lab of choice, and that is what, as in, it's still the same process, just paying an additional test if you have been unvaccinated. That's the difference, right? The process is still the same thing. Then it states step 5, following the successful payment, travelers should download the permit to travel certificate using the Get Permit to Travel button visible at the top right corner of the portal. Save and print the form for presentation at the point of boarding. Permit to Travel certificate QR code will have a paid label if payment is successful, an unpaid label if payment has not gone through yet or isn't successful. It also states that you get your permit to travel sent to your email address, so it's important to get the right email address. So now let's go to the boarding section, right? It states that prior to boarding to Nigeria, you must present basically 2 documents at the portal, probably at check-in, right? It says a negative PCR test, right? COVID test that was taken within 72 hours, right? It also states that, again, antigen test, antibody test, or any test that is beyond 72 hours will not be accepted. So that's remaining the same. The permit to travel that you've basically generated, right? It's needed. And you also have to show, I guess, on the permit to travel, the schedule of your day 2 and day 7 tests for unvaccinated travelers or partially vaccinated, and day 2 only for unvaccinated travelers. It states here, travelers failing to show the permit to travel will not be able to board, which is, yeah. The second, I guess, section here, I won't go into much detail. It's just saying that airlines that board travelers without the right PCR test or permit to travel QR code will be sanctioned. They'll basically, if you're not Nigerian, they won't let you enter the country. If you're Nigerian, they'll put you in a facility, basically probably at your own cost, right? And they'll find the airline and whatnot. It then states that at the time of boarding, travelers will be, required to take temperature checks and whatnot. Yeah. So we'll go now to what you'll have to go through in Nigeria, on arrival in Nigeria. I'm going to go through this quite quickly just to give you the key points, right? It states that you would have to go through the routine port health screening, right? Where you basically have to show the PCR test that you did within 72 hours and also your permit to travel. After that, you then go to immigration, right? It states here that if you have been partially vaccinated or unvaccinated, right? It states that you basically go and proceed to do your 7-day self-isolation, which is still in effect for unvaccinated or partially vaccinated travelers, right? It then states that travelers should check their emails and text messages for updates with regard to their repeat COVID test that they have to do, right? States that the government, the COVID response team might try and reach out to you, and about your day 2, day 7 test and your health status overall. It states that you have to show up for your day 2 and day 7 tests, right? And your selected lab will send a reminder to you. Follow up with them in case they don't, because it happens that they don't at times. It then states that if you test negative on day 7, you can exit isolation. Another section here is for the fully vaccinated travelers. On arrival, what happens, right? You show up at the lab on day 2 of your arrival. Your samples are taken, PCR tests are done. Yeah, pretty much that's it. So I guess this section is more about if you decide to break the rules or the law, this is what will happen to you. The first point, it states travelers who fail to show up to the sample collection center on day 2 or 7 of arrival will be sent text reminders and details forwarded to the state public health department teams and the NCDC for active follow-up. They now say, second point, travelers who fail to show up for testing will have travel restrictions placed on their passports for at least 6 months and will not be allowed to travel abroad. Non-Nigerian passport holders will have their visas revoked and deported from the country. I think that's quite clear. And actually, they've been suspending a lot of people's passports, so I know that happens. They actually follow through with that threat, basically. Not threat, it's a rule, right? It states that test results will be provided within 24 hours, and the state's public health department and NCDC will be informed accordingly. It states if the test result is not received 24 hours, contact the lab to get it, basically. Number 4, it states partially vaccinated or unvaccinated persons who test negative for COVID-19, right, after 7 days shall end self-isolation on receipt of their test result, but must continue to self-monitor for symptoms until day 14. So basically just, just check, make sure you're all right, you don't have any symptoms of COVID or anything like that. Same thing for fully vaccinated travelers. Even if you test negative, make sure you keep observing measures like wearing your face masks, using hand sanitizers, washing of your hands and whatnot. Travelers developing symptoms of COVID-19 on arrival will not be allowed to self-isolate and will be placed in institutional quarantine, meaning that if you land in Lagos or Nigeria and you're having symptoms of COVID, they won't let you go home. They'll hold you and put you in an institutional quarantine. It states persons who test positive for COVID-19 after the post 2 and 7 tests as applicable shall be managed based on national guidelines for COVID-19 treatment. So all that is gone. So I think this is another section that's really important that I feel like you guys will be interested in knowing. What is the procedure for passengers arriving without a PCR result? Any traveler arriving in Nigeria without a valid COVID-19 result, right, will be subjected to the following measures. If you're a foreigner with a foreign passport and a non-resident in the country, they'll deport you. Basically, that's what they're saying. 2, if you're Nigerian and you're a foreign passport holder and you have residency in the country, Port Health Service will basically check your temperature and review your questionnaire to establish your infectivity risk. They said the traveler will be escorted and placed in a government-approved quarantine facility, which is a hotel, for 7 days at the expense of the traveler. They will take your passport from you, right, and will not be released until you actually finish the mandatory quarantine period. I guess that's a way to enforce it. A COVID-19 PCR test will be conducted at a private facility lab within 24 hours of the quarantine facility at your expense again. If the test result is positive for COVID-19, the traveler will be transferred to an isolation facility and managed according to the national treatment guidelines. If test result is negative, partially vaccinated or unvaccinated travelers will continue with mandatory isolation at the quarantine facility until a satisfactory day 7 COVID-19 PCR test is done, whereas vaccinated travelers can go home after a negative COVID-19 PCR test. Yeah. So guys, I really hope that was insightful, right? As I mentioned, I'll leave the link to where this information is so that you guys can review it and look at it properly. It was a very quick video, I think. I hope it was super useful. If you still need clarity on any of the elements, feel free to leave me a comment below. I'll definitely share whatever sort of insights that I have with regard to your question. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're not bored of these travel protocols. Again, I really hope you're not bored, but I think it's good because a lot of people are seeing my content for the first time or they're traveling soon and they need to get information on what's happening right now with regard to the rules. So I'm doing this for them really, right? But nevertheless, if you made it up to this point, just say, you know what, Sassy, you're the best. Yeah, look at me. Sassy, you're the best. I want that in the comment section. I'm going to be engaging with you guys there. Thank you once again for your support and I will see you on my next video. Bye.